All right. Good morning, Buckeye Nation. You're listening to the Morning Scoop for Wednesday, September 14th. I'm your host, Ryan McClincy, and with me today, we have a very special guest. You know him, you love him. Most importantly, though, you love his nuggets. Nevadabuck, thank you for joining the podcast today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Excited. This is a great week. We've got Wisconsin in 2 weeks. We've got Toledo this weekend, and Ohio State's 2-0 and rounding into form, getting better every week. And that's this is an exciting time of the year. As I get older, I kind of enjoy every single game and enjoy every single week. Take nothing for granted, and this is shaping up to be a special season for Ohio State. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, no, I think first week obviously there's the jitters. The one thing that I've been trying to struggle with, these past few weeks, I don't understand, or I guess I haven't really experienced this many night games early in the season. So I don't know why Toledo's a night game. I don't know if you've kind of seen any historical Ohio State team that's had this many night games.
Yeah, no, this is somewhat unprecedented. And it's kind of wonky too. Like the night games are generally reserved and have been traditionally been for those big games. I can remember seeing one of the first night games ever in the stadium when they brought lights in when they played
Mm.
UCLA way back in the day, and now to have a night game and it's Toledo is just it's weird. It's weird. It kind of puts the game in just kind of that funky, wonky category,
Oh yeah.
and I'm superstitious enough to be concerned about that. Just because whenever something's weird, I get concerned. It's a crazy college football year already, and for Ohio State, I think they got to be ready against a better than people think Toledo team. So yeah, no, but this many night games, not never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. A buddy of mine actually went to Toledo, and we were talking the other day, and just about is Ohio State going to cover? What's that going to look like? And he was just kind of walking me through their quarterback and just kind of how explosive he's been. Um, you know, Obviously a mobile quarterback is never something you want to see early on in the season, in my opinion. But I'm confident this team will be ready and prepared for sure. Now that also brings me then to a good point, kind of what my first topic here and what I was really wanting to get your opinion on. I have my own opinions, so I'll cover those here in a minute. But um, I know it's early in the season. From what you've seen over these first 2 weeks, I guess what do you see as the biggest weakness of this team? And is there a team on the schedule that you see could exploit those to the point where we have a game like a Purdue or an Iowa where we just kind of drop the ball and lose some of that kind of momentum that we had coming in?
Touched on one of the things early on, just with the comment about the running quarterback. Running quarterbacks have been our kryptonite for a long time, and so I think that's always a concern. Looking for any team that's got a quarterback with any type of mobility. Luckily we don't. There's not really a lot of teams that have anybody that's particularly dynamic. Then the second thing would be teams that can run the ball and make the formula to beating Ohio State is run the ball, possess the ball, shorten the game, run the clock, don't turn it into a track meet. And,
Mm.
we're 2-0 right now, but if you really look back, I mean, we were trailing to Notre Dame in the third quarter, and Notre Dame's not very good. Notre Dame's, I've got Notre Dame penciled in at 4 or 5 losses, and that was before they lost their starting
Yeah.
quarterback. So we're not a great team. Do we have the makings of potentially being a great team? Absolutely. But when you look at teams like Penn State or Wisconsin or dare I say it, Michigan, that can run the ball, possess the clock, play tough defensive, and shorten the game against us, those are all going to be huge challenges for us. The good news is that only one of those games is on the road, and it's not a whiteout. So I like you need to get a little bit of luck, and you need to get a favorable schedule when you're making a national championship run. And I think we've got all those elements are in place.
Yeah, I actually I was taking a look through the schedule and just kind of trying to pinpoint exactly where I saw kind of a team that was more poised to be able to do that. Obviously, that team up north, that's going to be a huge game. They've looked good on offense so far. Granted, they've played Hawaii, so who knows what they actually are. But I couldn't really find anybody that scared me to the point that I would be concerned. But obviously, You've got some dynamic playmakers there at Maryland. Not really too scared of Northwestern. I think Minnesota will end up winning the West, so maybe in a Big Ten championship game against Minnesota, that's definitely something with Ibrahim and how well he played against us last year. Something to keep an eye on, but I don't know. Maybe it's the optimist in me looking at this and just kind of saying I'm not really that worried, but I'm like you. As I go into a game, I'm definitely going to feel the nerves and feel the jitters of, we can't really slack off and allow somebody like, a Michigan State or a Northwestern or Maryland to be able to kind of take advantage of any of those weaknesses. I guess what do you see as kind of the main weakness that a team like that would be able to exploit so far?
Well, I mean, it's got to be interior defensive line. Interior defensive line. You've got Michael Hall and Tyler Williams, who I'm really high on. But the other guys are just guys, and I think that for Ohio State, if you can establish that inside running game, you can counter off of it. You run some quarterback run, opportunistically quarterback run. Again, really like the Notre Dame team tried to do with very limited play. I mean, Notre Dame had no one on the
Yeah.
outside that could threaten us. Nobody that was scary at all, and they still managed. A very very capable tight end, but they still managed to keep the ball away from us for a long period of time. And those are teams that give us trouble. And I think for Ohio State's going to have to get a little bit more stout on the interior line. Maybe they're doing the double A gap blitzing. Maybe they're doing that with the jack position and moving
Mm,
Sawyer around and trying to create some of those mismatches on the inside. But I think they've got to get more stout. That's certainly the one area. If you ask me, the one area that I'm concerned about, it's not defensive back, it's not linebacker, which was a huge question mark coming in,
yep.
but it is interior defensive line, and I think that it's going to make or break our season right there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I've been pretty optimistic just in terms of the changes that Jim Knowles has made kind of up front and seeing just all the pressure that we've been able to get on a lot of those plays. To me, and it's not really a main area of concern, but I guess seeing some of these big plays against Denzel Burke has been something that has given me pause. I'm not sure if it's maybe just a position thing, maybe it's coaching. I'm confident that Eliano and Walton are good enough coaches to get that turned around. But um, I think he's played really well. I guess what do you kind of think is really causing some of these main big plays that have happened so far on the outside, specifically against Burke?
Well, one, he's playing hurt, and that's always an issue. He's had a bulky shoulder, and he's playing a little bit hurt. Not an excuse, but I think the other question, and it was an interesting one. It was raised by the helping technician, which is one of our great insiders on BuckeyeScoop.com. But he asked the question: just how good really is Denzel Burke? In his opinion, people were kind of overvaluing him last year, and on a defense that was just woeful. He was a bright spot because it just everything else was so bad that maybe it is who he is. And I thought that was an interesting take as well. So I think for Denzel, I think he could be a capable defensive back for us. But is he an elite shutdown corner? In the cloth of the Jeff Okuda or some of the great defensive backs that we've had coming through, he probably isn't. But I think Knowles will figure it out. I think Knowles is a master at putting guys that are way lesser talented into good positions and holding really good offenses down. So I think they'll coach him up. But I think let's get a little bit more of a sample size when he had a bad game. But hey, Josh Proctor didn't play well
Mm.
against Notre Dame, then graded out top rated against Arkansas State. So I think guys can snap back with a better performance, get a little more healthy, get a little more confident. But it's definitely going to be something that's worth watching going forward.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see, especially after he had been pulled during the game for Arkansas State, just kind of how he bounces back this week against Toledo, and just kind of seeing the progress and change as he goes. Like I agree with you. I think he definitely has the talent. I think we saw a lot of that last year. Where is the ceiling for it? That's still a pretty big question, as well as where the floor is. I believe in this defensive staff just from seeing again the changes in the offseason that they've been able to implement and getting this defense turned around from the abysmal defense that it was last year into something that's allowed one touchdown in 2 games. So I think the coaching is there, and I believe that he'll get better. Maybe again the optimist in me, but I think we'll definitely need him, long term to be kind of more of that shutdown corner that we've kind of expected him to be this year, and hopefully he can get back to that level. Now, on to some positive notes, though. Uh, from what all the off-season chatter, obviously, there's been a lot of discussions on the message boards about, how this team has progressed in the off-season. So, from what you've heard, just in the off-season, what you've seen so far, what's been the biggest surprise, positively in kind of the offense and defense? And if you had to pick one right now, offensive and defensive MVPs so far, who would it be?
Well, I think I mean, the story of the season clearly is Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles came in as somebody with a lot of pressure on him because people were looking for him to be the savior of an Ohio State defensive unit that had just been gutted. And frankly, I think the job that he's done has been nothing short of miraculous. I mean, the for him to turn around, we used to have open discussions on the message board about linebackers and why couldn't we attract good linebackers to Ohio State and what happened to all the linebacker talent and are we not recruiting the right guys? And all of a sudden, Jim Knowles comes in and also all the linebackers look great, and it was like a miracle. So
Yeah.
coaching matters at the college level. I've said it time and time again. It's almost determinative of success. I mean, what I mean by that is that great coaches can coach anywhere and they're successful anywhere. You look at Urban Meyer, who could coach at a Bowling Green and find
Mhm.
success, and then go to Utah and have an undefeated season, and then go to Florida and win 2 national championships, then come to Ohio State and take a team that was 6-7 and go undefeated. I mean, it just great coaches can coach, and Jim Knowles is a great coach, and I think that's certainly been the story of the season. I think offensively, I think the issues are really for me, and again, this is probably not going to be a popular topic with people, but I think the distractions for CJ Stroud over the offseason have been considerable. And I think
Yeah.
it's something that we got to, people don't like to talk about that, but, this time last year, people weren't even sure if he was going to be the starter. And now we're talking about him as the, lock number 1 pick in the draft. He's buying Rolexes for all his teammates. He's driving a Lamborghini. I mean, it's a crazy journey for CJ, and that's heady stuff for anybody, let alone a kid that's still in college. And I think that's got to be taking a toll on him. It takes a toll on him in terms of his on field performance, his off field preparation, and just kind of the decision making that he makes. Because I think it puts so much pressure on these kids to want to do more than maybe they need to. They try to force it a little bit because they're being asked to live up to these great standards. And frankly, he's got millions of dollars being thrown at him right
Right.
now. So I think it's been an interesting journey on both the offensive and defensive side. If I had to pick MVPs, I'd go Tommy Eichenberg on defense. He's a guy that's worked so hard. He's a sub 4.6 guy in the 40, which I had said that before the season. I don't think people really believe me, but now I think they believe me. He's just a terrific linebacker in the cut of those great linebackers at Ohio State. He's an AJ Hawk clone in terms of his approach to the game. Not saying he's as good as AJ, but he's just been unbelievable. And offensively, I give it to Marvin Harrison. And Marvin Harrison has been terrific. He came into the program as almost from a strength standpoint, and almost an NFL ready wide receiver. Got a great bloodlines and just does everything right, and has been terrific this year, both on and off the field. And I think when Jackson Smith and Jigba comes back, he's just going to get better. So those are my MVPs and my surprises.
Yeah, he had Marvin Harrison had to take on a pretty big role with Jackson Smith and Jigba, being out for, yeah, as early as he was. So I definitely agree with you there. I think still, my offensive probably still CJ Stroud, just because he's played really well. I am curious, especially just with the NIL stuff and not really having a ton of experience so far, across all of college football with any of that. How do you curb that? How do you kind of, I guess, um, re-engage a player like that to be able to drop the focus on that stuff and really get back to the game itself.
Yeah, well, it's hard, and look, the NFL struggled with it for years, and they've never really been able to figure out. They've always asked themselves in the NFL, when you draft a guy, if you give him $20 million, is it going to make him a better player or a worse player? And I think in college, I mean, look, the other night I was watching Monday Night Football, and I see commercials for with Caleb Williams on it.
Hmm.
You see Bryce Young in the Heisman House, and it's just weird to see these college kids and that I mean, for Caleb, I mean, he hasn't really done all that much. I mean, he didn't win the Heisman. He's not. I mean, I know he's the quarterback at USC, but he's on a national
Hmm.
television commercial on Monday Night Football. It's just insane, and I think it just adds a layer of complexity to the coaching job that these guys have to. The college coaches are being asked to do, because before it was recruiting and alumni and team administration and grades and all that. And now you throw on top of it NIL, and all that introduces the dynamics of the locker room. I don't know how these guys manage. So to have a guy like Ryan Day, at the reins, an adult who can talk to these guys, especially to the most important position on the field, the quarterbacks, I think is just a terrific blessing for Ohio State. But I don't know how he handles it, because it's a brave new world, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the Caleb Williams stuff definitely also gives a little bit more credence to what the message boards have been saying pretty consistently, that USC has a pretty fantastic NIL program. So they definitely know what they're doing, and they're doing it pretty well. So I agree. I think there's a lot that is kind of you never had to deal with it really before at this level. Obviously, Ryan Day, coming from the NFL, like he has some experience dealing with that issue, I'm sure. But I feel confident in him as the head coach. I feel confident in the just the overall staff in and of itself, to be able to get the team back kind of on track in that, and focusing on the games themselves. But I'm definitely looking forward to this weekend. Looking forward to the rest of the season, and looking forward to seeing how this team continues to progress, and getting us ultimately to the college football playoff.
Yeah, well, no, it's great, and Ryan, I just want to thank you for having me on the show today. I think you're doing a great job in terms of the interview. And I love your enthusiasm and your energy, and I love what you're bringing to BuckeyeScoop.com. So really glad you're part of it.
I appreciate it, Nevada, and as always, appreciate you having on. Thanks again for making some time and kind of giving us your insight into a lot of this. We'll definitely have you on here again, hopefully soon. But until then, that's going to do it for us. Thanks again, Nevada Buck, for joining me today. As always, you can find the Morning Scoop as well as all the other Buckeye Scoop podcasts by searching Buckeye Scoop on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. I am your host, Ryan McClincy. And until tomorrow, go Bucks.